has to do with history. Okay. Yes. You'll find it more interesting, even those that might be sleeping during our teachings. They will wake up when we get there. So we are yet to touch on events that are coming. We are yet to get there. But so just be patient with me, because we have to approach that area cautiously and slowly, and considering our brothers and sisters who might have not yet come across this kind of subject. You have to bear with me, please. Chapter 7, we are looking at a dream. We have a vision that Daniel, in this case, had. It's not the king of Babylon having a dream and Daniel having to come and interpret it for him. Now this is something very personal. It's the man himself during the night. He sees what he saw. And the good thing about the vision he had is that you have both the vision and the interpretation of that same vision in the same chapter. So I wouldn't want you people to worry so much about the meaning. Even the interpretation that I'm going to give you is not a personal interpretation of what Daniel saw. The interpretation is actually there. So it's not out of a deep revelation that we get to know the meaning. Daniel got the interpretation, so that's what we're basically going to be extracting from scripture as we study the history that was once the future. And then we'll get into the future and see what is coming. Because indeed something is coming. Thank you. Chapter 7 of the book of Daniel. Pastors, you are going to help us go through some texts. Let's go to the book of Daniel, chapter number 7. From verse number 1.
In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed.
Every prophet had his own secretary, so that whatever, even if you look at Jeremiah, he had his secretary who would write things for him. So all you do as a prophet is to see, and you give interpretation to the things that you would have seen in the spirit, and then you need somebody else to do the job for you. So this is happening during the first year of the reign of the king Belshazzar, who was the king of Babylon. So this is Daniel's vision.
Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, 4 winds of the heaven.
So this is somebody else who is doing it on behalf of Daniel, as much as the Bible says, and Daniel wrote.
Yes, Father.
But if you listen to the way that the dream gets explained, you notice probably it wasn't really him writing and saying, Daniel saw. Okay, right, move on.
Behold, the 4 winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea.
That's verse what?
Verse 2.
Okay, read verse 2 again.
Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea.
I think it would be nice if we can just go through it and then we come back slowly, and then I'll be letting you know of what is transpiring there.
In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea. And four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man. And a man's heart was given to it. And behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in his horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. 1,000 ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were opened. I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake, I beheld, even till the beast was slain, and his body destroyed, and given to the burning flame. As concerning the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and time. I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. And there was given him dominion and glory, and a kingdom, that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom, that which shall not be destroyed. I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit, in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near unto one of them that stood by, and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me, and made me know the interpretation of the things. These great beasts, which are 4 kings, which shall arise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom, and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Then I would know the truth of the 4th beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass, which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes, and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints, and prevailed against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High. And the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. Thus he said, the 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down, and break it in pieces. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand until a time and times, and the dividing of time. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion, to consume and to destroy it unto the end. And the kingdom and dominion, and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven, shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Hitherto is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my cogitations much troubled me, and my countenance changed in me, but I kept the matter in my heart.
All right, this subject, this topic on beasts that came out of the sea, it's not an interesting area to most people, because they find it rather bizarre and very confusing. In as much as people love the prophetic, not when it is presented in that manner. But obviously there is something that God wants his people to know and to understand, especially when you are living in such a time as this. Now slowly we are going to look into the vision and see what we can learn out of that. Remember, this is not a novice. This is not a new guy in the block. Daniel is a seasoned prophet. He's a mature prophet. He's been doing this for all his time. This is what he knows to do best. He sees into the spirit. And he's a man who is known for dissolving doubts, especially given the ability that he already demonstrated in chapter number 2, where even though the dream wasn't his, but still being able to extract it from the realm of the spirit. And you dream the dream. And they shall dream dreams. And he dreamt the dream that the king had dreamt. And he saw it. And it never ended there. He managed to attach the meaning, the interpretation of the dream, to the dream that wasn't his. How about when it is now him having the dream? You obviously expect some wonderful things to come out of that. It's an interesting chapter.
Yes, it is.
Chapter number 7. So, slowly, you start from verse number 2.
Thank you, Father.
Okay.
Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea.
That is what started in the vision. He saw that there was the coming together of four different winds from the four corners of the earth. And these winds then converged and they met in a place, and where they met, there was the Great Sea. And right at this Mediterranean Sea that he saw, once you have the wind coming against it, that meeting place of the wind becomes a storm. You expect some serious waves right there. So I want you to picture what the man saw. This is a violent incident that you're observing right now. Winds coming together, and the sea that was once calm became violent. Before we get to know the meaning of the sea or the meaning of the water, what the water represents, you must take note of the coming together of the four winds. Whatever the waters represent, the waters are not in a good state before we talk of what then came out of the troubled waters. There was need for something to agitate the sea, to stir up the waters. And as a result of that storm, then the beasts came out. Now, already you have a picture of chaos. You have a picture of violence. That's not a calm sea, that's a violent sea. Having four winds from four different directions coming in one place. Imagine what happens to the water. So it's a violent situation. It's a chaotic environment that led into the emergence of these beasts that were different from each other. Now, before we consider what came out of the water, right from the beginning, it is important that we understand the meaning of all these images, pictures that Daniel the prophet saw. You said he saw what? Verse 2.
The four winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea.
They strove upon
the great sea.
The great sea, yes.
And four great beasts came up from the sea.
That's what came up out of the sea because of the wind that strove over the surface of the waters.
Diverse one from another.
They were so different.
The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings.
Now, I want us to look at Revelation chapter number 17. Maybe you can read verse number 12. Then you skip and read verse number 15.
And the 10 horns which thou sawest.
This is an interpretation given to John in the book of Revelation of Jesus Christ. He had seen similar visions, similar beasts also coming out of the sea. So there are some similarities. We'll get to the book of Revelation. I'm trying to spare that.
Thank you.
Okay? But let's look at the interpretation of what he saw, the meaning.
And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings.
The 10 horns are what?
10
kings, yes.
Which have received no kingdom as yet.
As yet, they are yet to receive their kingdom.
But receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast.
They will receive power so that they would be kings for an hour with the beast.
Verse 15. And he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest.
Verse number 15 now. The waters that you have seen,
where the whore sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues.
Waters are what?
Peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues.
So already we are getting an interpretation of the water, what the water represents. So back to the book of Daniel, okay, chapter number 7 and verse number 2. What we see happening are the 4 winds coming together and they strove over the great sea, the water. And out of the water came out what? The beasts. Okay. So, we do have right here the 4 beasts that came out of the water. And by the beasts coming out of the water, right, don't forget this, because this is something that you're supposed to be able to explain to your friends. Okay? We now have an understanding that whatever happened that made the beasts to come out of the water, it's something that happened upon nations, upon people, upon people of different languages. The wind, there must have been something happening over nations that made the beasts to come out, not of the water. Because now we know from the book of Revelation chapter 17, verse number 15, the waters that you saw are people, tongues, languages. Okay. So when we go back to chapter number 7 of the book of Daniel, and then we see beasts coming out of the great sea, that's out of the water, that's out of nations. Okay. So we are not going to expect any beast to come out of the Mediterranean Sea or the Indian Ocean or the Atlantic Ocean.
Yes.
Whatever that we see coming out of the water, our focus now has to be nations. Okay. So there is a reason why prophets had to prophesy in this manner. Because most of the prophecies that they would give during that time were actually against kingdoms that were prevailing at that time. And they wouldn't want themselves to be threatened by a word or a vision or whatever the case. They would quickly destroy the prophet and even destroy his prophecy. So what was smart for them to do, even God himself would bring visions to his prophet in a manner that would then require an interpretation first, so that the prophecy is preserved, and in the process, the prophet himself is also preserved. So there is a reason why God is doing this. When you look at you are not looking at something completely new. Every nation, even as we speak, has an animal that is a symbol of that nation. Yes. You look at the Americans, yes. Theirs is an eagle. China is the dragon. Am I right on that one?
You're right, Father.
Okay. The British, they have the lion. Some nations, they are represented by birds and so on. So what we're witnessing now coming out of the sea is something that is coming out of the people. So we are not going to be witnessing strange beasts here. These are kingdoms that are going to be coming out of different nations as a result of chaos. There are disasters that are going to happen, that are going to compel nations to come up with systems and personalities. So, looking at those beasts, unfortunately, the one behind is a little bit dark, but these are 4 great beasts that came out of the sea, the water, the people. As the 4 winds of the earth strove over the water, which means over the nations, there's going to be a movement of spirits which is so strange, where we are going to have chaos on the face of the earth. It has been there before. It will continue. The convergence of winds, the movement of spirits, which will then result in kings coming up, kingdoms emerging from nations. But it takes a spiritual person to know, because physical people, they wait until they have the arrival of a physical king. But prophets are spiritual enough to know what actually led into the introduction of a king that is coming. There are winds involved before you can see the establishment of a system that is physical on the earth. There must have been a movement of some spirits first before a kingdom arises. So, we are reading from Revelation chapter number 17, verse number 15, and now we know, going back to the book of Daniel, we know where the beasts are coming from. It is never from the sea. It is from the people. In case you are privileged one of these days to come across a prophet who tells you there is a disease from the sea. Okay, let's move on. I want us to look at what he begins to see now. What is it that then came out of the water, that came out of nations as a result of chaos? You look at all these kingdoms that came right from Babylon. It was after conflict. They would take over as a result of conflict and confrontation. You wouldn't have a beast coming up when the seas were calm. There was a need for chaos first before the emergence of any kingdom. So he sees 4 beasts that you are looking at right now coming out of the sea. Yes?
Verse 3. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse, one from another. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings.
That's the lion there that you see that came out of the water, and it had the wings of an eagle. Do you know that from that time right up to now, you see, that has always been the symbol for the Babylonians. Okay? They had a lion which had the wings of an eagle. Now, this is the first creature that he saw coming out of the water. Not because it was the first kingdom to reign. There are several other kingdoms that came before the Babylonians came. Take note of that.
Yes.
But Daniel is prophesying from where he was. He sees from where he stands. Starting with the kingdom, because he's under the Babylonian care. That's where he is. So he's seeing and he's dreaming and he's prophesying from Babylon. So he's prophesying from the head. Lest you forget, we had Daniel chapter number 2, where the king had a dream, and what he saw was an image. And this is Daniel chapter 2.
Yes, sir.
Then I gave you the interpretation according to how it was given to Daniel by the angel of God.
Yes, sir.
That the head of God was the Babylonian empire, followed by the silver, followed by brass, followed by iron, and then iron mixed with clay. So you're looking again at the chapter that we have already worked on, which is chapter number 2. But here comes another vision which is similar to the dream that the king of Babylon had in chapter 2. This is now chapter 7, but now this is the prophet himself. Now he goes on to explain that he saw, according to the interpretation that we read, because the man that was standing nearby where Daniel went to, and then he asked him, what is the meaning of these creatures? He was told that these are kingdoms,
Yes, Father.
that are coming. So we have the first beast which came out of the water,
Yes, Father.
coming out of the nation, out of the people. And this one was like unto a great lion, which had eagle's wings. Now he sees this lion. What happens?
I beheld
He kept on looking at this creature.
till the wings thereof were plucked.
The wings got plugged. So he's talking of a kingdom that is so powerful, powerful enough to destroy and to devour. This is a very vicious creature. And on top of that, wings of an eagle were given to this Babylonian kingdom. So you are talking of strength, and we are talking of elevation. The height of this kingdom was so immense. It was so serious. So he was the king of the field and also the king of the air, as represented by a lion and an eagle. If you notice again, as Daniel was interpreting the dream that King Nebuchadnezzar had in reference to the head of God, he said to him, you are the King of kings, wherever the animals dwell and the birds of the air, they've been given unto you. That's an interesting thing there. So you have animals and you have birds. Right in chapter number 7, you also have a lion, which is the king of the animals, and also you have the wings of an eagle. So the birds are covered, and also the beasts of the fields are also represented there by the lion. So this kingdom was so powerful. So I beheld and I saw till the wings of an eagle got plucked, removed. So this is a demotion. He's prophesying concerning the downfall of a kingdom. I beheld till the wings got removed.
And it was lifted up from the earth and made stand upon the feet as a man. And a man's heart was given to it.
And a man's heart was given to it. So he was reduced to an average human being. All the strength of a beast was taken away. The abilities of an eagle was taken away, and he was made to stand like a man, and the man's heart was given to this creature that was once a creature. It is no longer a creature anymore.
And behold, another beast.
Then another beast came.
A second.
The second beast,
like to a bear.
Then I saw another beast that came after the lion. And this was a what?
A bear.
A bear. And what happened?
And it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3...
Take note of the description of the bear. The bear that I saw that came after the lion had its upper side raised up. Everything there is very important.
And it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it.
It had 3 ribs in the mouth.
Between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. After this I beheld, and lo, another.
Then after this I beheld, and lo, another.
Like a leopard.
Then after this I saw another, which was like a leopard. Like a leopard. Like a leopard.
Which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads.
4 wings, take note of that, and also 4 what?
4 heads.
4 heads. And what happened?
And dominion was given to it.
Again, dominion was given to this leopard.
After this,
after that,
I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceeding.
This one is different. The 4th beast was so dreadful and it was so terrible.
And it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces.
It had great iron teeth, and it devoured and destroyed in pieces.
And stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all
different from all the beasts that came
before it.
Yes.
And it had 10 horns.
It had 10 horns.
I considered the horns. And behold.
So he moved from just observing the beasts. He went on and zoomed in the horns. He wanted to look at the horns and consider the horns. Yes.
They came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up.
So the horn that came a little horn that came plugged off 3 other horns.
And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment
I beheld till thrones were cast down. And then what he begins to see there is judgment. Right after the last horn that had a mouth had finished speaking.
Daniel 2 verse 38, Father.
Yes.
And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven hath he given into thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold.
In explaining the head of gold, he went on to talk about animals in the field and also birds in the air. You compare that to Daniel chapter number 7.
Yes, Father.
So that's in reference to the same kingdom. So we have to put here, let's have the image that he saw in chapter number 2, the king of Babylon. And then here he comes and he says, you are that head. And then in chapter number 7, we have the lion. Let's put it over here. Okay?
Yes, Father.
And this represents Babylon. This is the Babylonian Empire. So we have over here Daniel chapter 2, and here we have Daniel chapter 7. And we are noticing some similarities over what the prophet said in describing the head that was of gold. And this is so amazing. This is so amazing. He beheld till the wings of an eagle got plucked off, and he was made to stand, and the heart of a man was given to him. Then he kept on looking.
And behold, another beast.
Then another beast.
A second.
A second.
Like to a bear.
Like unto a what?
Bear.
Unto a bear. Now, let's notice something here. We have a bear. Let's put it over here. We have a bear that took over from what?
From the lion.
From the lion, which is the what?
The Babylonian.
The Babylonian kingdom. Now, we want to observe something here very critical. From the interpretation of the image, we said silver represents what?
We said it represents Persians and the Medes.
The Medes and the Persians. So in chapter 2, the silver, which was the chest, had 2 arms. And we said 2 arms represents what?
The Medes and the Persians.
The Medes and the Persians. That's in chapter 2. And in chapter number 7, we have a bear. And if you look at the image of the bear, the form, the structure is not the same. There is the other side. The Bible says, you read and you see that it had another of its side raised up. Is that right?
Yes.
So read it again.
And behold, another beast, the second,
The second,
like to a bear,
like unto a bear.
And it raised up itself on one side.
On one side, the other side of the bear was raised up. Okay?
Yes,
that goes again to show that there was some notable difference of these two empires. Again, with the silver, we have two hands, the Medes and the Persians, and the bear had two different sides to itself. And what is being meant by that is the difference between the Medes and the Persians. If you study your history, you will notice that the Persians were more powerful than the Medes. The Persians, being led by Cyrus, were so strong economically in terms of military, in terms of their intelligence. They were actually in charge, in as much as it was a unity of two systems. There was the other part of that system that was raised up like a bear. Two arms that we see over there, the other one is a left hand, the other is a right hand. So the other side is weaker, the other side is stronger. And now we are looking at a bear which is raised up. And also the shape of the bear, the other side of it, the upper part, is bigger than the lower. So it's important that we notice how he sees these images and you compare them to the image that the king of Babylon also saw. Okay, and he kept on looking. Something is happening to the bear.
And it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it.
Remember that the bear had ribs. 3 ribs. You see those ribs in the mouth, and an instruction was given to the bear.
And they said thus unto
the bear,
Arise,
arise,
devour much flesh.
Devour much flesh. 3 ribs and an instruction to devour much flesh. Now, again, I want you to see, history has it again that the Medes and the Persians, all the fame that they have, they conquered generally. They conquered 3 major regions. In this case, we see them coming after the head. It means they came and they conquered the Babylonian Empire. So we have the Babylonians, and we also have Lydia, and we have Egypt. And these 3 are major in history, which also points out to the 3 ribs that we see in the mouth of the bear, which was raised up. Now the Medes and the Persians, they overcame the Babylonians, Lydia, and also the Egyptian empire was defeated also by the Medes and the Persians. So we are looking at everything that we are seeing in that image has an interpretation according to what then Daniel got from the angel of the Lord. Keep on reading.
After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl.
I beheld, and
lo, another, like a leopard.
Like a what?
Leopard.
Like a what?
Leopard.
Like a leopard.
Which had upon the back
Let's
of
put it over here.
4 wings of a fowl.
I saw a leopard which had 4 wings, like a
fowl.
Like a fowl.
The beast had also 4 heads.
And the beast had what?
4 heads.
4 heads.
And dominion was given to it.
And dominion was given to it.
After
this. And now we know, according to the interpretation of the image in chapter number 2, that this is in reference to what?
Greece.
Greece. Dominion was given to Greece. We know how Alexander came. Over here in the future, we are going to put again chapter number 8. All right? We'll place it somewhere over here. Because there are again some similarities. I want you to finish first, and then we'll come back to Greece, and then we'll look at the last beast.
After this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast.
Fourth beast. So the last beast was the fourth. He didn't see 5. He saw 4. Okay. Now he's looking at the fourth beast. Yes.
Dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth.
Let's move it to where the iron is. Okay. You put it over here. That's exactly where we have the iron. Compare that to the image in chapter number 2 again.
Verse 14, chapter 2. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron.
As iron. Now we go back to chapter number 7. We see this great and dreadful beast, which is the fourth one.
Was strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth.
It had iron teeth. We see the same metal again on the fourth beast.
It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it.
That's how the Roman Empire destroyed all the kingdoms that came before it. The Babylonians and the Medes and the Persians and even Greece. We'll look into that in detail. But I want you to take note of something that is so outstanding about this dreadful beast.
And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it. And it had 10 horns.
It had what?
10 horns.
10 horns. I want you to notice that if you are even to turn this beast upside down, what you're going to have are the 10 toes. From chapter number 2.
Wow.
So, if that's the case, it means we have this last fourth beast. And whatever happens after the fourth beast is not another new kingdom. It's an extension. It's a revival of the same kingdom. Just like we see this particular section here, over here, which is of iron, and we have the beast over here with iron teeth, and down here we have the toes, 10 toes, and over here we have 10 horns. Now, as this kingdom here goes down, it gets revived. There's going to be a dark age in between that actually occurred. And we know when you study history that the dark age that once took place on the face of the earth was at a time when the church and the state had a union. There was a marriage between the two. That's the time that the church got persecuted, and every script, they tried by all means to destroy every vision, everything to do with God during that time. And the Bible refers to that as idolatry. When the two are in good books and they are working together. When the state starts telling the church what to do. Now, what is important here is to consider this is the time that Jesus came. He came during the Roman Empire era. Remember when the decree was given by Augustus Caesar for people to be counted. That census that took place in Luke chapter number 2 and verse number 1. That was under the Roman Empire era. So Jesus is coming at a time until he died. He died in the hands of the Roman soldiers. Okay, everything that you see happening, these were Romans that actually killed, that actually crucified him. Okay, so this kingdom came to an end until a time that is coming where it would have to be revived again. So we are looking at these kingdoms here. Now let's look at the Grecian kingdom, which came after the bear, which had 4 wings of a fowl and 4 heads.
Verse 6, and after this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it.
And dominion was given
to it.
To it. All right. I wanted to go again and you look at chapter number 8. I want you to observe the description again of the ram and also the he-goat.
Daniel chapter 8, verse 2. And I saw in a vision, and it came to pass when I saw that I was at Shushan, in the palace, which is in the province of Elam. And I saw in a vision, and I was by the river of Ulai. Then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram.
A ram?
Yes.
Which had what?
Which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other.
You see now? So next time we come here, we are going to place our ram over here. You just have to look at it, how it's actually, how it is synchronized. From the 2 hands, which is of silver, and we have the bear, which had 2 sides. The other side was raised up. And then here we have what?
A ram with 2 horns.
With again what?
2 horns.
2 horns. And the other horn was?
One was higher than the other.
Again. That's in reference to the Persians being led by Cyrus, which were greater than the Medes.
And the higher came up last.
It came up last. It was the Medes actually that started the invasion.
I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beasts might stand before
North and what?
West
and what?
And south.
You see, he's referring to 3 places again. Over there we also have 3 ribs again. In chapter number 7. So we are just comparing. We have Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7, we have Daniel chapter number 9. So next time I'll be putting, the reason why I'm not putting those pictures here today is because we have a lot of explanation to do with regards to those 2 beasts that he sees in chapter number 8. Because that's where we're going to start describing the Antichrist. So I'll reserve that for today. And then we just write it down, and then I'll put some images there next time. But we have the ram, yes?
So that no beasts might stand before him. Neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand. But he did according to his will and became great.
He became great.
And as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west.
He-goat came from the west. Okay? That's the Grecian Empire, the Grecian kingdom, the Grecian invasion coming from the west against the Medes and the Persians. Okay, so we have the he-goat over here. Let's look at the description again of the he-goat.
An he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth and touched not the ground.
Touched not the ground. It's a goat, but it's not touching the ground, which means it was flying. Already you see now, you compare to chapter 7.
Yes. The leopard.
You see the leopard, it had what?
Wings.
4 wings.
Like a fowl.
So leopard is a very fast animal. He might have said leopard, maybe it was a cheetah that he saw. They look alike. But on top of the speed of the leopard, there were actually wings on the back of the leopard. And that goes to describe the conquest of Alexander the Great, how fast, how swift he would move. At the age of 33, he had accomplished so much. The speed was so terrible. So we see a leopard with wings in chapter number 7, and we also see a he-goat, which wasn't touching the ground in its conquest. So the aspect of speed is being revealed in all these creatures that are appearing to Daniel.
And the goat had a notable horn.
Notable horn. That's in reference to Alexander the Great.
Between his eyes. And he came to the ram.
He came to
the ram.
The Medes and the Persians. And what?
That had 2 horns, which I had seen standing before the river.
Yes.
And ran into him in the fury of his power.
Yes.
And I saw him come close unto the ram. And he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his 2 horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand.
That's the destruction of the Medes and the Persians by Alexander. Yes.
But he cast him down to the ground and stamped upon him. And there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand.
Yes.
Therefore, the he-goat waxed very great. And when he was strong,
the he-goat, what happened?
The great horn was broken.
That's the death of the first horn. Alexander the Great himself, he died.
And for it came up 4 notable horns.
Now we see 4 notable horns. And in chapter number 7, we see 4 notable heads.
Yes.
So the heads are referring to the kings. Those are 4 kingdoms. And also with the he-goat, we see 4 horns. And that's in reference to 4 kings. Okay, keep on reading again. The he-goat.
The great horn was broken. For it came up 4 notable ones.
4 notable ones. After the death of the first horn, 4 notable ones came up.
Toward the 4 winds of
4
heaven.
winds. We have winds. We have that's it.
The converging 4 winds.
You see, we have again in chapter number 8, we have the wings.
Yes, Father.
Wings that are 4. 4 heads, 4 wings. In chapter number 7, the leopard had 4 heads, 4 wings. So the 4 heads are representing the 4 kings that are going to take over from Alexander. And also the 4 wings are representing the 4 directions that these generals are going to occupy. So see how scriptures are lining up from chapter 2, chapter 7, chapter 8. And we'll get into chapter 11 of the book of Daniel, and we'll also look at chapter 13 of the book of Revelation. And then you'll be amazed
We are amazed.
at the way things are coming out and the preciseness in the prophetic. It's so amazing. Keep on reading.
And out of one of them came forth a little horn.
A little horn out of one of them. That one I'm going to work on that next time. But we are looking at the kingdoms that have been lined up so far, right up to the fourth beast.
Yes.
Now, I want you to go and let's analyze the fourth beast, because Daniel himself, of all these beasts, he chose this one in particular. He wanted to understand. Forget about the rest of the beasts. But he said, let me know, help me understand the meaning. What does this beast represent?
Verse 7 of Daniel chapter 7. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it. And it had 10 horns.
The moment he mentions 10 horns of the beast, which again are the 10 toes of the image of Nebuchadnezzar, what happens after that?
I considered
the horns. Yes.
And behold, there came up among them another little horn.
They came up among them another little horn.
Before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots.
Now, this is now is describing to us the 10 kingdoms that are going to come. And this is the revived Roman Empire that is coming, where we have 10 kingdoms or 10 notable kings in Europe that are going to constitute the last governmental order, where everything will be dictated from that hierarchy. When we get to that time, when we begin to study the 10 toes and the 10 horns, this is the same last fourth beast with 10 horns. But again, we will study in the book of Revelation, chapter number 13, how this horn is going to pluck 3 other horns. The same thing that we have seen happening again over here in chapter number 7, where you have a little horn that came out and then 3 horns got plucked up by this one. That's how the Antichrist eventually is going to attain his power and authority over the remaining 7 kingdoms, when he has destroyed the other 3 kings or their kingdoms completely. Okay. So what we see happening, it's not going to happen during the iron or the metal period. It will have to be during the mixture of iron and clay. That is when we are going to have the 10 kings and 10 kingdoms coming together. And out of those, 1 horn has to emerge. 1 king has to emerge. And he has to destroy 3 horns or 3 kings or 3 kingdoms. And the rest in chapter number 13, you will see them surrendering their kingdoms, their power to one world leader who is the Antichrist himself. Now, this little horn that you see that had a mouth that speaks blasphemous things, it goes to show that this horn is unlike the previous horns. I want you to look at the last horn. Just look at the last horn.
I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots.
Yes.
And behold, in this horn were eyes.
Eyes?
Like the eyes of man. And a mouth speaking great
things. Yes.
I beheld, till the thrones were cast down.
After that horn I beheld till what?
The thrones,
The thrones were cast down. The casting down of thrones, this is not in reference to the casting down of thrones of the 10 kings. No, it is the lowering down of thrones. This is a court proceeding that he sees. Thrones. And then what happens?
And the Ancient of Days did sit.
And what happened?
Whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool.
You see, that arrangement that you see, you are seeing it right after the last horn. 10 horns, one last horn comes out, destroys 3. You now have a world leader, one world ruler. So you're not going to have only one leader, you're going to have one economy, one currency, one system, one government. The rest are there to support that one leader that is coming. It is at that time when thrones were lowered. And I saw the Ancient of Days. At what time did the stone arrive in chapter number 2? Again, we are noticing the appearance of the stone.
Yes.
At what point?
At the mixture of the iron and the clay.
And the clay, when you now have the 10 toes, the 10 kings, and those kings are going to have one leader, it is at that time that the stone Jesus himself comes in to take over. And again in chapter number 7, we are noticing that at the time of the 10 horns, and one horn that comes out to take over from the rest of the kings, it is at that time that also thrones were set. And the Ancient of Days, he's seen by the prophet sitting down, taking over. And what happens? Keep on reading.
His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were opened. I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake.
Now he goes back to the Antichrist, to what was happening at that time of the coming of the Lord. He's describing the second coming there.
I beheld even till the beast was slain, and his body destroyed and given to the burning flame. As concerning the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and time. I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. And there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near unto one of them that stood by.
Now, he wants to understand. Yes.
The truth of all this. So he told me and made me know the interpretation of the things. These great beasts, which are four kings.
So now we know, in conclusion, that the 4 beasts that he saw are what?
4 kings.
So when you're studying these beasts, what you're studying are kings. You're studying kings. These are kings that came not from the water, but from nations. Starting with the Babylonian king, right up to the last king that is yet to come, the last one. Now he seeks to understand what happens.
These are 4 kings which shall arise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom
Who's
forever.
going to reign forever?
The saints.
Yes.
Forever, even forever and ever.
Ever. Yes.
Then I would know the truth of the fourth beast.
I wanted to understand the fourth beast. Probably because he had an understanding of the previous beasts.
It's okay.
Given that he had already interpreted the king's image.
Yes.
Okay, so he has an understanding. There is something that I don't want to share with you from that. It's just for prophets. Okay, so he knows, but he wants to understand the fourth beast because to him it was unlike
The others.
yes.
Then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass, which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. And of the 10 horns that were in his head.
If you look at his feet,
Yes, Father.
what do you see there?
10 toes.
I wanted to look at
His feet.
I wanted to look at the feet. Look at the feet. Describe him again.
Then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron.
Teeth was of iron, yes.
His nails of brass.
Nails was of what?
Brass.
Nails was of what?
Brass.
And he comes to stamp. Which kingdom did they destroy?
Greece.
Greece. Which was of what?
Brass.
Of brass.
Which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with his
So you look at the nails there, they are of brass because of the Grecian kingdom, which is of brass that they had destroyed. Okay?
Understood.
So he's trying to describe how the creature is going to arrive. Its first victims is the Grecian Empire.
And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes, and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows.
So it's different. That one horn is not comparing the horn to the other beasts. No, it's comparing one horn to the rest of the horns.
All right.
He was unlike his friends. And you know what makes this horn unique and different from his friends? It is because of the nature of his leadership. This is the first of all the horns that is going to be both religious and political. Given the things that he talks about, the first thing, he's a king who takes from other kings and he receives authority and power from other kings, which means this is a political figure.
Yes.
And then when he opens his mouth, he likes talking about religious things. He speaks against God. So don't be surprised in chapter 13 of the book of Revelations, we'll see a world ruler who comes and he demands that he gets worshipped. Everyone has to worship the beast. In as much as we have one president, his focus is not just on politics of the world or economics of the world. He will demand worship. So we have this little horn different. He's unlike his friends because of this character that we see now. He has a dual character. Okay? Now, what happens?
I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints.
You see the tribulation?
Yes, Father.
Now, we'll explain the meaning of the saints again there. He made war with the saints.
And prevailed.
He prevailed. Prophetically, that is guaranteed. He is going to prevail. There's nothing you can do about that section of scripture. He has already, this is determined. He is going to prevail. That horn is going to prevail. Yes?
until the Ancient of Days came.
Till the coming, the second coming, he will prevail against his saints until the second coming. Only the second coming can stop him from prevailing.
And judgment was given to the saints of the Most High.
Judgment was given to the saints, not the saints being judged, but judgment is given to the saints to judge.
And the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom.
Yes.
Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth.
Fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth,
which shall be diverse from all kingdoms.
just like the iron was diverse from the previous kingdoms. Yes.
And shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces.
Yes.
And the 10 horns out of this kingdom
The 10 horns out of this last kingdom,
are 10 kings.
10 kings, and also we saw the 10 toes.
Yes, Father.
Okay? That's the last kingdom again with 10 toes. Here we have the last beast with 10 horns again.
That shall arise.
These are 10 kings that shall arise.
And another shall rise.
Another shall arise after the 10.
This is the little horn.
This is the little horn now. Yes?
And he shall be diverse from the first. And he shall subdue 3 kings.
Yes?
And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws.
Yes.
And they shall be given into his hand until a time
A time
and times
And times
and the dividing of
of
time.
times. A time is 1 year. Times, that's 2 years. A dividing of times is half a year. That's 3.5 years of the Great Tribulation. The last part of this 7 days, which is 1 week, according to chapter 9 of the book of Daniel. That is why Jesus calls it the Great Persecution. The trouble that mankind has never seen, because that time was given to him. A time, times, and half a time. In as much as you are going to have him coming right at the beginning of the 1 week or 7 years, and then he signs a peace treaty with the Jewish people, that is not when war is going to start. War begins in the middle of the week, and when the covenant of peace is broken. Then power is given to him to overcome and to destroy the tribulation saints that we'll talk about. Okay? So it is during that time that you now have the reign of this horn that speaks blasphemies against the Most High, and he wears out the saints. He will seek to change laws and times. Oh, I have to slow down because now already I'm almost like getting into the future. We want to separate the future from the past. But what is happening there?
But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion, to consume and to destroy it upon the end, unto the end. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High.
That's the millennium reign, where we are going to reign, we are going to be in charge, and we are going to judge. That's an interesting part. I don't want to get there now. Yes?
Whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Hitherto is the end of the matter.
This is the end of the matter. Now we are looking at the current position of the church. We are probably somewhere there. Over here. So if we are to talk of rapture before the establishment of the 10 toes, or before the establishment of the 10 horns, we have to be talking of this region over here. But if it's going to be after the tribulation, then we are talking of rapture happening at this point. But if it's before, it has to be over here, where we are taken. But notice, there are things that we are going to look at so that we understand the events that are taking place over here. This is where I'm going to spend most of my time. I have a lot of stuff that I need to share with you happening over here. If rapture is to happen before the coming together of these 10 European kingdoms, my advice would be for you to make sure that you don't miss it. Things that we have happening after the rapture, if it is to happen before the last week of Daniel chapter number 9, which is the 70th week. If rapture is to happen before, that is going to become the blessing of the church. What happens after the church is taken is something that you wouldn't want to experience. You would rather read about it and learn about it, but not for you to be here and witness what this little horn is capable of. At this time, what you will experience is the bleeding of the earth. It will bleed. Because people are so thirsty to get to the teaching on rapture. By the time we get to that, probably maybe next Sunday, I don't know. You will see the importance of not missing that event. You're not supposed to be here when this guy shows up. This guy is not just a physical guy. His approach is somewhat supernatural. His source of influence, his abilities are, he has an understanding of dark statements according to the description that we are going to see as we study him. Where else have you seen a political leader who has such a prophet? A political leader who has such a prophet. who does all sorts of miracles that you have never imagined. And the prophet will demand that you worship the little horn, the beast. Where are you going to hide? Because this is not just an intelligent system, this is a prophetic system. Where is the hiding place? If this thing can be escaped, we have to look for that escape and make use of it. I've shown you where we are as the church. Now I'm going to touch, like I promised, chapter 8 in detail, and I'll give you a proper description of the Antichrist, how he's going to come into prominence, events leading to his ascension, and the nature of his power and his ability, and how he is going to govern this earth, and what needs to happen before that. Because of the time that I've taken today, I think we can pause for a moment and see. I'm not sure whether are we supposed to come again on Wednesday, or I think let's wait till Sunday. Let's wait till Sunday.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you, pastors, for having me today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Father. You know, I can't help but just have this feeling like the Antichrist is coming next week. I think that's the reason why everybody wants to understand when the rapture is taking place. Father, thank you so much for this wonderful word. Based on the message that you've just given to us, Father, the interpretation, bringing clarity, Father, I'm amazed at the level at which the prophetic can operate. You look at how Daniel's vision and Nebuchadnezzar's dream fit into becoming one. And you make reference to Revelation 17 and you clarify these particular chapters of the book of Daniel. And we get an interpretation thereof from that point onwards. Father, each and every example, I got to a point where I was trying to imagine Daniel's understanding. It can only be God bringing us this information now. Because if you try to go by civilization, at that point you couldn't have somebody line up events and dreams and align visions that way, especially considering that it was Nebuchadnezzar who had this dream.
You're right.
It's just amazing how the prophetic operates, Father. I'm just amazed. But amazing. You come here, you unseal the sealed, and we get to understand these things, Father. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Oh, we thank God.
Father, we appreciate you so much. We are so honored to have you with us.
Oh.
Thank you for your love. Thank you for the mercy showing us all this. We're so grateful, Father. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
What a marvelous service. Wow. Till we meet again next time.